and welcome to another episode of Dr.Podcast, where we are going to explore transformative leadership and innovation in higher education. And today, I'm truly honored to be joined by Dr. Devorah Lieberman, a distinguished higher education leader, visionary, and former president of the University of Laverne. Dr. Lieberman has spent her career empowering institutions to embrace diversity, deepen civic engagement, and lead with purpose and inclusion. Her work exemplifies how strong values, data-informed decisions, and compassionate leadership can shape thriving universities and communities. In today's conversation, we'll dive into the power of purpose-driven leadership, mentoring the next generation of educators, and sustaining impact in a rapidly changing higher ed landscape. Dr. Lieberman, it's an honor.
Reem, it's my honor to be sitting here with you today.
Thank you so much. So how about we jump into our very first question? And
Okay.
if you can kindly share a glimpse of your academic journey from when you decided to obtain a PhD till you became a president of University of Laverne.
Well, Reem, you think that's a simple question, but it's a hard question because I think there are very few people who know exactly where they want to go and what they want to do and what their their professional trajectory is. So if I think back to when I said, it's time to get a PhD, or I need a PhD, or I want a PhD, and then what were sort of the pivotal moments from that PhD to the presidency, I think what comes to mind first is I had been living in Israel for a year, in Switzerland for a year, and in Athens, Greece for 5 years. And I was teaching in universities and in the educational system in Israel, in Switzerland, and in Greece. And when I was in Greece, I realized, after having taught overseas all those years, I realized that the greatest impact that I could make in the world would be through education and through intercultural communication. Because living in these other countries, I realized that conflicts between and among countries and people and individuals, many of these conflicts were about lack of communication or having the communication skills to cross lines of difference and get to a better place together. So when I was teaching in Athens in the university, I said, I'm going to go back to the United States, get my PhD in intercultural communication so that I could become a professor and then work with students on these communication skills that they can use for the rest of their lives. So I came back and got my PhD with that in mind, became a professor, a department chair, was asked to be, people saw things in me that I didn't see in myself in leadership. So others above me in the hierarchy would say, Devorah, I think you should become a department chair. Devorah, I think you should be a vice provost. Devorah, I think you should be a provost. So others saw things in me, and I listened and said, wow, if they believed I can do this, I think I can do this. But I needed others to believe in me before I really believed in myself. And then I became a provost, and then a search firm called me and said, we think you should apply for this presidency. And that was my basic, not very linear, but my basic trajectory.
Amazing. And you said something. You said that you felt that you needed others to believe in you before you believed in yourself. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because I feel that, we all have that one way or another.
I think it's very interesting. I thought, Reem, that I was the only one who felt that way. That I was like, am I good enough? could I really do this? Am I smart enough? And it was all these questions about enoughness. I made that word up, enoughness. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? And what I found was that, as I said before, others, it was men and women who saw something in me that they pulled me up and said, you really need to look at doing this or following this path. And then 2 years ago, I wrote and edited a book with 10 international university presidents, all female, every one of them. It's available if you Google me. And and I asked every president the same question. What was your trajectory? What are your strengths? What were your transformative initiatives at your university? Nearly every president, female, said first they were the first female president at their university, but almost all of them said, I never felt like I was good enough. I always had the imposter syndrome, and I'm still trying to come to terms that I am good enough. I don't know if we ever get there, Reem, but I realized when I did that book that I wasn't the only one who was feeling that way. And it's okay to say, I have these questions about my own vulnerability. There's nothing wrong with recognizing it and saying, wow, I'm not the only one who feels this way. I do think it's more gendered. I think it's more female than male, but I'm not sure if the females are just saying it and the males are not saying it, but I do think it's prevalent, especially with females.
So true, 100%. I don't want to say after what you said, unfortunately, because like you said, it's okay to accept our vulnerabilities. Nonetheless, do you think that sometimes that imposter syndrome does hinder us from pursuing things that we should have pursued, or negotiating, or truly believing in ourselves and our capabilities?
Reem, without a doubt. If others hadn't seen something in me that I wasn't necessarily recognizing myself, I might not have pursued some of the upward mobility that I did in higher education. So two things. One, it's very important for all of us to come to terms with what are our strengths and what are our things that we need to improve. I think all of us should always be self-reflective, but I also believe that it's part of our responsibility to mentor others, to be here for others, to support others so that they can become the best versions of themselves. And we may see something in them that they haven't seen in themselves. And what a wonderful gift to give to others to help them grow and flourish where they might not have done that on their own.
Thank you. We rise by lifting others up. And
let's quote that. That's a bumper sticker.
And since we're talking about, all of this, I feel that maybe now is the time to share a little bit about the values or the guiding principles, that you feel have most influenced your leadership philosophy across your career.
The values. Well, I think I shared this with you before, but not with your podcast. So I think most of our values are ingrained in us when we're very, very young children. We have beliefs, values, and attitudes. Our beliefs are what we hold as true or not true. Our values are what are right or wrong. And our attitudes are how we feel toward and how we treat people based on our beliefs and our values. So all of us, when we were little, you, Reem, myself, we were given things, we were taught things by authority figures that we we were told this is true, this is fact, this is fiction. And we believed it because we were little, and these are beliefs that became part of who we are, whether they're religious beliefs, gender beliefs, political beliefs, things that were taught to us as this is fact, it's a belief. And our values are the things that we think are right or wrong. So, and then you combine those values and those beliefs, and that becomes who you are as an adult. I think it just becomes part of our DNA. So when I was a little girl, my parents every Saturday morning would sit myself and my two brothers down, and they would say, Devorah J. Allen, um, these are values that are guiding us as a family, and these are the values that guide us through our religion and through our culture. So one of the values that was taught to me every weekend was um, you have one obligation in life, and that is where the world is broken, your obligation is to repair the world where it's broken, or to heal the world and heal people where things are broken. So that became such a part, I think, of how I made choices in my life about where to live, what to do, what to support, what not to support. And I think that repair the world became sort of my North Star as I went through my trajectory. So the reason that I accepted the provost position, the reason I accepted the presidency, it's very simple. I accepted those positions because I thought I could be in a position in a university or a college where I could influence um, not curriculum, but I could influence campus culture. I could model what it means to repair the world, and modeling that for the students, the faculty, and staff. I think I modeled that. I tried to model that through having a very open mind. So some faculty would come to me that would completely disagree with my decisions or my opinions, but I would always listen to all perspectives so that everybody has a voice and they deserve to be listened to, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, rich, poor, whatever your stance. So the values and the behaviors that I tried to model was open-minded, listening, empathy. When people would come to me and they would be having issues, the more I could empathize with them, the more I could understand their perspective. I think humility is very important, that it's not all about you, it's about the institution. It's not about what you've accomplished, it's what happened during your tenure, and so that the next president could take this gift that you left them and make it even better. So I think empathy, humility, open-mindedness, listening, and the value of always surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you. I knew I needed a fabulous CFO so that I could always be working with him on budgets and I could understand budgets. I needed a fabulous provost so that he or she could be working on curriculum with faculty. So all of those basic attributes and the behaviors, I think, that align with those attributes.
Dr. Lieberman, you just tapped into the essence of leadership because, I mean, unfortunately, not everyone is a true leader, and that's true leadership. It's basically being an empathetic listener, taming the ego, and sometimes putting it by the door when the person enters the office, to be able to open up to different opinions and ideas. And also one very important thing that you kindly mentioned, which is surrounding yourself with people that you believe are smarter. And not everyone is capable of doing that. Some people do fear for their positions as if, if I got someone who's smarter, they will take my job, which is not the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love when people are smarter than I am. And that I could trust them and they could trust me. Surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you and always uh, sort of have the same values, that there's something bigger. It's not about them and their job. It's about the institution and the university. So, yeah, I think that is critical. And just to add in a quick addendum, from the research I've done, um, presidents who are not successful often don't have those leadership qualities that I talked about and don't have a leadership team that trusts the president and the president can trust as well so that they can all move forward together. So I think I think that's a critical piece of success is surrounding yourself with people that you all move forward together.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully different leaders in different disciplines, actually not only in higher ed, will listen to that and get inspired. This takes us to another question that has to do with your vast experience in higher education. So what do you think has changed the most about higher education leadership since you first entered the field? And what challenges do you see emerging for future leaders? So what were the changes and then the challenges for future leaders?
Wow. Well, when I first, I'm not going to say entered higher education, because I was a student. I was an undergraduate, a master's, a doctoral student. And when I first sort of started thinking more broadly about higher education, and not just my role in higher education, I think it feels to me, it felt to me that it was a simpler time, or it was a more predictable, I'll say predictable, that there's a university, students could choose to go to the university, to go to a university, or not. Which path should they take? Should they follow a avocation, for example, becoming an electrician? Should they go to community college? Should they go to public? Should they go to private? Should they do undergraduate and graduate? What profession should they go into? I think that was sort of the model when I first became a professor. So I was becoming much more aware of higher ed when I got my PhD, my first assistant professor job. And I think that's how it was in the early 1980s when I had my first, before you were born, Reem, in the 1980s, when I was my first assistant professor position. And if you look at going from assistant to associate to full, and then vice provost, and then provost, and then president, I think the big changes, I think leadership today is, being a president today is not the same as being a president 20 years ago at all, because you were the president of an institution and you're focused on that institution. So today, the biggest changes that I see, one is there's a lot less trust in higher education than there was, I'm going to say 20 years ago. A lot less trust. There's many more options for students. They can go to a traditional institution. They can learn online. They can go to a mega university that's like Pac-Man, that is got a system across the whole country and the world. So I think higher education today, and with the new in the last year, with the changes that have been made to higher education in the United States by the federal government, it's changing dramatically. It's changing accreditation. It's changing how we, our authority, our autonomy, not our authority, our autonomy with the federal government, and our accountability with the federal government and with our state government. And being in higher education today, if someone wants to become a president, I think it's more important to be a strong president today than ever before because there's no roadmap. And a president today has to anticipate the unanticipated, which is impossible. But it's so necessary because I think I think there is a skepticism around the world about higher education. And I think there's more skepticism internationally about U.S. higher education than there was in the past. And I believe in U.S. higher education deeply. And I think we're fragile. We're fragile, more fragile today than we've been in decades. A very honest answer.
Thank you so much. It is an honest answer, and actually, it's very important sometimes or most or all the time, in my humble opinion, to be honest, especially about the challenges faced, in order to be able to tackle them in an effective way. And it's because of leaders like you, and I know that you did train future leaders as well. Hopefully things like that or these challenges will be tackled. And this brings me to another question, which is for early career, higher education leaders or even professors who are also leaders in their own way. What do you think now more than ever should they get equipped with, whether it's skills, different, like as if it's like a toolbox? What would the toolbox be, or what would it include?
Right. So if you're a beginning assistant professor and you say, wow, I am now on this trajectory and I need to bring a toolbox that's going to help me be successful. Here, I have never really thought about that, but here's the tool. Here's what I would put in that toolbox immediately. I would say one, every single day, read Inside Higher Ed and the Chronicle of Higher Education, both free electronic publications, but it will keep you in the know of what's happening around the country and around the world. That's the first thing I would say to do. The second thing is I would say truly do a self-reflection on what gives you the greatest joy and what you're good at. Because you may be good at something. Like I love singing, but I'm a terrible singer. So I shouldn't become a singer. So really assess yourself. What are you really good at? And what do you love doing? And based on that answer, what you're good at and what you love doing, then when you go onto the job market to look for an assistant professor position, look at the fit with the institution that is interested in you. It's a two-way street. Are you interested in the values and the mission of that institution or not? If that, and the reason I bring all this up is because you could go to, when I became an assistant professor, I wanted to go to a university that was more focused on teaching and students than on research, because I knew I loved that and I was good at the teaching and working with students from underrepresented populations. I didn't want to go to an institution that you were held accountable on how many articles you published and how much research you did and how many A journals you published in. That wasn't what I was good at, and that didn't give me passion. So the first tool, I would say, is reflect on, one, Inside Higher Ed, Chronicle of Higher Education. Two, what are you really good at and what gives you the greatest joy? And then when you look for a position at a university, you will look for a position that fits what you're good at and what you love doing. That's the second, I guess, tool. The third tool is balance your time, because especially new professors, they spend usually too much time preparing for class and not enough time doing their own research, because to get tenure, no matter where you are, you have to be publishing and doing scholarship. So the third tool I would say is looking to balance your time so that you are balancing it between service, scholarship, and teaching. And the fourth and last tool is make sure you are networking outside your institution and inside your institution, because as you stay in higher education, it's this broad network nationally and internationally that will give you the greatest joy, and these will be your friends and your confidants. And it's that network that can help you advance if you stay at your institution or decide to look at moving to another institution. So 4 tools off the top of my head.
I love it. Thank you so much. And I bet there are so many more, but hopefully, maybe in other episodes.
Another podcast.
We should have like 15 episodes with all that, experience. So those 4 tools are amazing, actually, and really helpful. This takes us to another part of higher education, which are the challenges that are facing higher education, like you kindly mentioned a while ago. What do you think is the one most pressing challenge that is facing higher education today, particularly in terms of equity, access, institutional culture?
Wow. There's so many big ones that are, I'm not going to say challenges, but they're facing us. I think the biggest, my fear is that my fear is that we know that students who go to college, graduate, and then go on to have, I'll say, quality jobs and make higher than a living wage. My fear is that those who come from privilege will continue on this path. They'll continue. And those who come from middle and low income, my fear is that that the scholarships that they needed to go to school and to complete and to move on with their lives successfully, they won't be able to afford to go to school. So I think that's my biggest fear. If we don't create the model and the system so that those who deserve to go to college can go to college, I think it's going to be a disservice to the country and the world. So that's my biggest fear.
And it is a huge fear, because that's the Matthew effect somehow, right? It's like, okay, those who start at sort of let's say there's a social capital or economical capital, or even when thinking of the parents and the level of education, there are so many factors that come into play. Unfortunately, this does have an impact on the accessibility and the equity when it comes to higher education, even though, like you kindly said, there are so many, let's say, high school students, or even younger than that are brilliant, but they just need the chance. They need the resources. They need the mentorship in order to be able to carry through and hopefully, not only join a college and let's say a 4-year degree granting university, but also to finish, that journey and achieve at least a bachelor's degree.
Right.
So this takes us to that phrase that is nowadays a big hit somehow, meritocracy. So it's just that I wanted to, see how do you think of meritocracy and how it's shaping the institutional policies in higher education. Particularly that it's impacting this, specific topic is impacting in an unintentional way sometimes the higher education, and like we said, the students that do not have the chance even to thrive within the programs that they're joining.
Agreed. I think the word meritocracy is being used by different people and with a different lens, so they're defining it differently. And just on the surface, if you said, okay, those who deserve to go should be able to go, and those who deserve to graduate should be able to graduate. That's sort of, who's going to disagree with that? That's sort of like everybody, I don't care who you are, they're going to say, yeah, if you deserve to go, you should go. But how it's being, the conditions that are being laid out for this meritocracy are saying just the word merit, meaning what merit do you have to be able to be accepted into college? So part of this is now putting into place these objective standards saying, yes, you deserve to go. You've got the merit to go. So one of the standards that's being reintroduced is that everybody must take the SAT or the ACT. And at my university, the students were predominantly middle and low income, the first in their families to attend college, 70%. And they standardized tests were not easy for them because they weren't exposed to them in school. So now if ACTs, and so at my university, we eliminated, we said you don't have to take the ACT or the SAT. There are other ways that we're going to evaluate if you can do the work at this university. And the bottom line was, can you do the work? And if it had been just a straight up meritocracy, they'd say, you can only get into this university if you had a certain SAT or a certain ACT score. And we said, wait a second, that's one measure, but there are different ways that we can look at this. And what we found was when we eliminated, or we said you don't have to submit ACT, SAT, you could submit an essay, your high school transcript, a reference letter, an interview, that when we said there are these other options, our student body, our student applications increased dramatically. And the students who chose to come to the University of Laverne, did very, very well. And the retention was better than we anticipated. So that word meritocracy, if you make things so cut and dry, you're going to have a greater divide between the haves and the have-nots, as opposed to saying, how does everybody succeed? How do we help everybody succeed if they can do the work? And so that word meritocracy, I think it's being misused to mean, I think it's taking on a definition that can hurt higher education as opposed to helping higher education.
Yes, thank you so much. It's as if it's like claiming fairness when it's truly not. Again, because of the different types of capitals that some students have, like the privilege they have versus others. And you kindly mentioned one great sort of an alternative way, rethinking SAT, ACT. So I was wondering if you have any other alternative frameworks or evaluative practices that, might help us move beyond traditional notions of merit toward more context sensitive or equity centered understandings, of student potential and achievement. So other alternatives, like the revisiting of the SAT and the ACT, for instance, but within the program itself. So while the students even are studying in college or in the university.
Yeah, this is just one quick example that I made up this phrase. It's earn to learn. And so here's a pathway that I'm working now with the LA County Chamber of Commerce, with institutions of higher education and health providers. So here's my example of alternative ways of helping students to succeed, find their paths in their professions and their occupations, and to graduate and be really civic-minded individuals in their communities to help their whole community. So when a student comes to the university, if they express an interest in health, they don't have to say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a physician assistant. They just have an interest in a health profession. The path that I'm calling Earn to Learn. So if they're a freshman and they say, I'm interested in health, well, if we as an institution are very, very deliberate, strategic, and thoughtful, and we connect students who are interested in health in entry-level health positions in the community while they're taking classes, then, for example, medical assistant or pharmacy tech or basic, I'll use those two, pharmacy tech and medical assistant, which are in great demand in all of our regions. If a student is a freshman, they're taking classes and they are doing an externship that they're getting paid for to be a farm tech or a medical assistant, then while they're in that position and they're studying, they're earning money to learn, to pay for their tuition, and they're learning if this is do I want to stay in healthcare? I don't necessarily want to be a medical assistant for the rest of my life, but this is a stepping stone to becoming a nurse and a PA and a physician, potentially. So when you ask me, what are alternative paths? I think the path isn't to take a test there's nothing wrong with testing and rigor, nothing wrong with that, or writing papers. But I think the bigger marker of student success is putting them into experiential activities like this Earn to Learn that I'm talking about with health professions, so that they are testing out, can I do this? Can I be successful at this? And is this something that really I'm good at and that gives me joy? And so when you ask about alternative paths, my alternative path is not just test, but put them in positions and opportunities and experiences where they can demonstrate that they have the knowledge from the classes, they can apply it, and then they can go on and be successful post-graduation, not just in a profession, but it's our responsibility in higher education, Reem, to give them the skills to be successful, civically engaged professionals in their neighborhood. So they can be on the city council, they can volunteer, they can advocate for things they believe in, have a profession, and be a contributor to their neighborhoods and their region.
Truly remarkable. It's the best way actually to connect theory to practice, that's also the core of problem-based learning and bringing whatever the community lacks or is is challenged, in and making the students have an impact early on and think that way. Like you kindly said, civic engagement and thinking, okay, how can we best advocate for our community? How can we give back to our community? And then this becomes, bigger and bigger, because at the end, hopefully, we're creating global citizens.
That's, Reem, you summed up this entire interview in one phrase, that we are training and graduating students who are global citizens. And they think about the world, not just their own little corner of the world.
So true, because we're all connected. Yeah, it's one world, and the borders were created. It's all political, but at the end, we're one. We're all human beings, and I keep saying even our DNA is the same except for 0.1%, and from that 0.1%, only 0.00 or 0.01% creates the differences, even in the way we look. So we're more similar than different, and.
Yeah, look at you and me. We've got the same gender. We grew up in different countries. We grew up with different religions. We grew up with different families. But look at this conversation that we're having now, finding common interests, common topics, and being better together than we would be if we were separate. This is a perfect example of what we should all be doing.
So true. Thank you. This means a lot. I really don't want to conclude that interview, but I know that, of course, your time is precious and you have a lot on your plate. So as we conclude, how about you share just the final pearls of wisdom from your extensive experience in higher ed leadership? Lessons that have shaped your approach and that might guide emerging leaders in the field.
Well, pearls of wisdom. I would say always, there's a phrase that's going around that's very popular now saying authentic leadership. And I'm not even sure what that means, authentic. And I think that, so my first pearl of wisdom is be a principled leader. Authentic is about you. Principled is what you do for others and with others. So be a principled leader, meaning make decisions based on what's best for the greater good, and make decisions and model for others how to be a good listener, how to be empathic, how to be humble. So that's principled leadership to me. That's the first thing. The second is, and this is advice that I did not follow enough in my own life for others, is I have a fabulous, beautiful, marvelous, beyond anything I ever imagined, wonderful family. I have a husband, 2 daughters who are kind and brilliant and loving, who have their own families now. So I always loved my family. And however, I loved my profession as well. So my advice is make sure that you take the time, that your family doesn't feel like they're second and your profession first, but that everybody knows that that you are that they're number one for you. And my pearl of wisdom is that I don't think I always lived my life where I was, I didn't always, I wasn't. So my advice is be giving and loving as much as possible to those who are your immediate and extended family, so that you have this balance where you are getting as much joy or more from your family than your profession. So you can do it all, you can have it all, but one doesn't have to be at the expense of the other. So have a fabulous profession and a fabulous personal life, and do both of them, and take time. Take the time for your profession, take the time for your family so that you are always, so everybody feels that they've gotten the best of you, your profession and your family. So that's my advice. I've worked very hard at trying to do both, and it's not easy. I think as a woman, it's really not easy. A very short example is the male presidents that I know, when there's sort of an expectation that their wives or their partners are show up at all these events. When I was president, and my husband has a full-time job, and he would come to all these events, people would say, "Oh my gosh, you have your own profession and you're coming?" How often do people say that to female, the spouses of male presidents? Not often. There's an expectation. So when you become a president, Reem, and I don't know if you're married or you have a partner, but you have two partners.
No. I'm married. I'm married with two kids. My daughter is 17, and my daughter is.
Yeah. You have two partners. Now that is a new goal.
I have a fun place. No, my daughter is married with two kids. My daughter is 17, and my son is almost 14. And my husband also has a full-time profession. He has a PhD in systems engineering.
So you understand what I'm saying, that it's a balance. It's a balance that you as a female, as a mother, a wife, and a professional, it's a balance that people don't always give you the grace that they should, so that you can balance it all. And I was fortunate that I have a family that has given me the grace to do it all and to do it with passion, all of it.
Dr. Lieberman, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much for sharing such a powerful journey with us. From your early academic roots through your remarkable presidency at the University of Laverne. I want to say that your reflections on leadership, equity, and the evolving landscape of higher education does remind us, and this is something that I really mean. It reminds us that the heart of this work is deeply human. And this is something that we have to put so many lines under.
When you write your book on higher education, your title should be "The Heart of Higher Education is that we are all human."
And I promise this will be my very first book to publish, Dr. Lieberman. Okay. Dr. Lieberman, you've helped us see that leadership is not a position, but a practice grounded in values, self-awareness, and the courage to keep learning. So as we close, I'm sure that our listeners, many of whom are early career educators, doctoral students, and emerging leaders, will definitely carry forward your message. That genuine impact in higher education comes from combining intellectual curiosity with compassion and a commitment to fairness and transformation. So thank you again, Dr. Lieberman, for inspiring us with your wisdom and vision for what higher education can and should be.
Thank you, Reem, and thank you for inspiring me every time we speak.
Thank you so much. Thank you.